Hey, what is going on, guys? In today's video, I want to do a final review slash ranking of all the seasons in Fortnite Project Era as it's about to come to a close. Now, I do want to say that I've only been around for 8 months relative to the 3-year history of Era, so I'm only going to be commenting on Season 4 and beyond, as I simply didn't experience anything before that, so I can't really say whether that was a good or bad season. And the second thing I want to say is this is highly subjective. Everybody has their own criteria and their own opinions on what makes a season good. And with that, let's start out with Season 4. Now, I would honestly rank Season 4 of the 5 seasons I played probably in 4th place. And that sounds kind of wild because I would also say that Season 4 was just an unbelievably magical experience that, in a way, first playing Season 4 was just so different that I don't think ever got replicated. But I also think there were a lot of issues. Let me kind of explain what I mean. I remember Season 4 in historical Fortnite as being absolutely amazing in this glorious season, and I still think that was true in Project Air as well. Running double shotguns again, right? That was just something that was like, wow, I can't believe the meta is this free, this diverse. There's just so many options in shotguns, SMGs, ARs. You go in SCAR, SMG, right? It was just so open and so interesting. Every fight, they had a different loadout than you, and you had to try and use strengths of your loadout. It was a really fun experience. But I also think that time was very limiting in the sense that you didn't have controller custom binds. Without controller custom binds, I just found controller completely unplayable, as I have such optimized and radically different binds than normal that it just wasn't playable to go back to default binds. So it meant that I had to play on keyboard and mouse. I still really enjoyed my time, but that's a really frustrating thing, that controller was very hard to use. Yes, there were still people that were very good in Season 4, that could work around that, but that just wasn't me, and that was a major problem. And number two, player counts are just low. The most people I got in solos is maybe 20 people, and 10 people lobbies, 3 people lobbies. That was very common, and that's a pretty big issue. So overall, I'd say while Season 4 felt magical, I acknowledge that later seasons I do think were overall better, so I would only really put it in 4th place. Again, it was an incredible experience, but I just can't put it any higher than that. And let's move on to Season 5. Now, when Season 5 first came out, I actually left Project Era because I wasn't interested in trying to play without double shotgun with with keyboard. I just wasn't interested. I was like, okay, it's time to hang up the gloves. This is the end of the road. But about a month into the season, they released the Controller Custom Binds mod, which honestly completely revolutionized the way you could play, as now, controller was genuinely usable. Yes, controller had a lot of limitations still. You didn't have build sense, you didn't have the edit button, couldn't be changed properly. But honestly, it was just enough to where I felt like the game felt truly fun. It still felt very classical. It still felt a lot like Season 4, where there was a lot of tower camping, a lot of base building, build battles, very little box fights. And the meta was still incredibly interesting. Arguably, in some classes, even more interesting. You still had 3 viable shotguns with the pump, double barrel, heavy. You could even run 2 shotguns in certain situations. There were 4 viable SMGs with the LMG, compact, standard, silence. There were 3 ARs with standard AR, burst, silence. There were 3 snipers, hunting rifle, bolts, heavy. It was just so fun. There were so many possible options. Season 5 had a little bit more mobility, which I think overall helped, make the game move a little bit quicker. Player counts were very good, in the middle of Season 5 when I played until Fortnite OG. It obviously tanked in Fortnite OG, but there was a time in Season 5 where the players were very good. And overall, I look back on Season 5 as probably being my second favorite season. It felt classical. It was really enjoyable. So many options. I was changing up which guns I was running. One day I'd run heavy shotgun, compact SMG. Next day I run double barrel, standard SMG. A few hours later I run pump shotgun, LMG. You just run whatever you wanted, and that was just truly an experience that I missed, and I don't think we ever saw again. It's just this unbelievable amount of choice where you can decide what you wanted to run, and that just whatever you wanted, whatever fit your playstyle. That was truly, really enjoyable. Overall, yeah, I'd really say it was the second best season for me. It was just a season that I genuinely, truly enjoyed. And honestly, had we been stuck there forever, I would still be playing to this day because there was so much to try out. Now, Season 6. Season 6 was one of the shortest seasons I think we've had in Project Era, at least, that I experienced from start to finish. And Season 6, I think, was the greatest season of Project Era that I ever played. Here's why. Season 6, they were really going for, we're going to make balance changes, regardless of whether it's historical or not, we're going to make balance changes. The pump shotgun was buffed. The gold bolt action was added in. The bounce pads were unvaulted. It was just truly a time that was like, wow. They're making changes to improve the state of the meta, and that was really fun. That, things were getting balanced, and it felt really good. The meta was still fairly interesting. Well, yes, some guns were vaulted and nerfed. Double barrel was nerfed. LMG was vaulted. Sans SMG was vaulted. You had the quad launch, which honestly, the explosive meta was so interesting then. Grenade launch, RPG quad launch. And it was the last season that felt like it still had some classical elements. Well, yes, mechanical skill was starting to get out of the classical era to where box fighting was becoming more and more common. Those tower camping strategies still worked to an extent. And I feel like it was just a golden time. Player counts were unbelievably high during this time on NA. We had the butterfly event where there were like 4,000 people all on air at the same time. It was just an experience that I won't ever forget. That last week of season 6 when I was playing with Cody Morgan, getting those 20 plus skill games on NA, there were 90 people in the lobby. It was a time that I truly, really appreciated. And I just think the season was short. That was good. I just don't really see any issues that player counts are high. I just think that was the season that if you told me, you can go back to, as the season was historically, what would you go back to? I would say season 6. I really enjoyed it. And you saw that, the videos, the discussions I would make, I was genuinely excited to talk about the meta because it was truly interesting. And I think that was the greatest season I'd ever played in Project Era. Now, moving to Season 7, I think Season 7 started off pretty well. But to be honest, I already thought there were serious problems with Season 7 right from the get-go. Number one, the L2 cooldown, sure, was L2 a bit busted in previous seasons? Absolutely. Could a nerf be justified? Maybe. But making it so aim assist turns itself off 50% of the time was the worst solution that could have possibly been implemented. And it just made playing controller so unbelievably frustrating. Okay, that was a huge issue. Number two, the gun meta was just so uninteresting. The pump shotgun was so broken. The spaz was so broken. There were no competitors anymore. And it just meant you had to run the same gun every game. And honestly, it got really boring to constantly run the pump and face the pump every single fight. If you were running attack, you were screwed if the other enemy had a spaz. Let's be honest, okay? And number three, the player counts were just plagued with being painfully low. Well, they started off really well. It just was a drag to play NA for weeks and weeks on end with no people. Eventually I had to switch to EU, even with 130 ping, which ended up working, but it was painful to play NA, okay? And the only way EU works is because I had Resi or somebody that was good on EU to play duels with. That would never work, with someone that's not very good. You would never get any success because I had so much ping, right? The other thing was there was just a lack of balance changes. Those non-historical changes that we used to see in Season 6, they just went away with Season 7. The only thing we saw get vaulted was the crossbow, and that took 1 month. It was just a painful season, honestly, and I look back, there was too much mobility. I still think it was like a B, if you give me a grade, probably a B. It wasn't bad by any means, but just compared to the other seasons, I just kind of see it as a drag. It just wasn't. I think it was really a missed opportunity. Had we gone to an early patch Season 7, I think it could have been better. Had the season been shorter, I think it would have been better. Had they made some changes, got rid of the L2 cooldown, nerfed the spaz, brought back the heavy, buffed attack, it could have been a really awesome season, but I just think it was honestly kind of a swing and a miss with Season 7. And I just wouldn't want to go back to that. And our final season, Season 8, I think it ended up out on the podium. I think it was a third place season. It was middle of the road. It was good, but it wasn't the greatest season we've ever played. Season 8, I think, was overall reversing a lot of the problems in Season 7. Nerfing the spaz, pretty good balance changes across the board. Introduction of the flintlock, which opened up the meta, buffing the infantry, buffing the scope DR. These are good changes. Reverting the L2 cooldown, reducing the mobility. I think Season 8 was overall a big step up over Season 7. Classical era Fortnite, that had all died. The game is way harder in Season 7 and Season 8 than it ever was in Season 4, 5, and 6. The game became way harder, and that's just something that I think was unfortunate, that the game didn't feel OG. By Season 7, it just didn't feel OG anymore. That doesn't mean it was bad, but it just didn't feel old, and that old classical era game was just gone. And while I think Season 8 was overall a really good season, I don't think it was the top two. I think it rounds out at third. It was good, but it wasn't, it's over now. We didn't get to see it all the way through, but I don't think it was peak Project Era. I think that really was Season 5 and Season 6. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video, everybody. If you have your own rankings you want to leave in the comments below, of course, feel free to do so. I'm happy to discuss it with you. And with that, I'll catch you in the next video.